There is a house in Sweetwater, Alabama that has 3 floors. Every deed filed on that property since 1841 says so. Every insurance survey filed with the county says so. The tax assessor's field notes from 1962 list 3 separate levels and 3 separate square footage totals, which are added together at the bottom of the page. But if you stand in the yard and look up, you will count 2. I stood in that yard for 11 minutes before I let myself admit what I was seeing. Or what I wasn't seeing. My name doesn't matter for this. What matters is what I do for work, and what happened over 4 days in October when I did my job the way I always do it, and it worked exactly the way it was supposed to, and that's the part that still keeps me up at night. I document buildings before they're gone. I work for a state historical archive, and most of what I photograph is barns and storefronts and the occasional church. Things that are going to be bulldozed for a road or a parking lot or just time. Somebody decided that before they disappear, there should at least be a record. A last set of photographs. Measurements. Interior shots. Something to put in a file cabinet so that in 100 years somebody can prove the building existed at all. The Odom house was scheduled for demolition in November. A highway realignment was going to take the front 1.5 acres, and the county had already condemned the structure as unsalvageable. Termite damage, a partially collapsed rear addition, and a roof that had been patched so many times it was more tarp than shingle. Nobody was fighting to save it. I was just there to make sure it didn't vanish from the record completely. I got the file 3 weeks before the shoot, standard packet. Chain of title going back to the original land grant, a 1962 tax assessment, a 1938 WPA survey photograph, black and white, the house looking almost exactly as it does now, minus 80 years of decay. Every single document in that file said 3 floors. I didn't think anything of it. Old records are wrong all the time. Somebody miscounts. Somebody transposes a number, an addition gets built and torn down, and the paperwork never catches up. I've seen houses on record as having wings that were demolished 60 years ago. It happens constantly. I made a note to verify the floor count on site and moved on to the next file. I checked into the only motel in Sweetwater on a Tuesday afternoon. It's a single-story strip of rooms across a fallow field from the Odom property, close enough that I could see the house's roofline from my window if I stood at the right angle. The woman at the front desk asked what brought me to town, and when I told her, she got quiet in a specific way. Not unfriendly. Just quiet. "You going in there at night?" she asked. I told her no. I'd be shooting during daylight. Standard protocol. "Good," she said, and didn't explain herself, and I didn't ask her to. I drove out to the property that afternoon to do a walk around before starting the real work the next morning. That's when I counted the windows. 2 rows. 2 stories worth of window openings, evenly spaced, consistent with any 2-story farmhouse of that era. I stood in the yard with the file folder open in my hand, looking down at a photograph that showed the same facade, same porch, same window spacing, and same roofline, captioned with a floor count of 3. I want to be clear about something. I am not a person who sees things. I have photographed condemned buildings for 6 years. I have been in places that most people would call haunted, and I have never once had an experience I couldn't explain with bad wiring or settling foundations, or my own exhaustion. I say this because I need you to understand that when I tell you I recounted those windows 4 times, out loud, standing alone in a dead cotton field, it wasn't because I was scared. It was because I was certain I was making an error, and I wanted to find it. I never found it. 2 rows of windows. 3 floors on paper. That night, back in my motel room, I looked out across the field one more time before I went to bed. The house was a dark shape against a darker sky, and near the top of the roofline, higher than any window I had photographed that afternoon, there was a single point of warm yellow light. I told myself it was a reflection. A star. Someone's porch light from a property behind the house is playing tricks with the angle. I did not go back out there that night. I want that on the record too. I am not brave in the way these stories usually require someone to be brave. I closed the curtain. Before I keep going, I want to say something to whoever's listening to this right now, especially if it's late where you are. Whether you found this channel last week or you've been here since the beginning, thank you for sitting with these stories the way they're meant to be heard. In the dark, with the volume up. Willing to let something unresolved sit in your chest for a while. If that's you, take 30 seconds, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we're here every single Thursday with a new one, and I promise you, this particular story is about to get a lot stranger. Okay, back to it. The next morning, I went to the county courthouse before I picked up my camera equipment. I wanted to see the original documents, not the photocopies in my file. The clerk pulled the deed book and the 1962 assessment card without much interest. The way you'd expect from someone who's pulled that same folder for insurance adjusters and genealogists 100 times before. The assessment card was handwritten. 3 lines under levels, each with its own square footage, were added by hand into a total at the bottom. First floor, second floor, third floor. The handwriting was steady. Whoever filled it out in 1962 was not confused about what they were looking at. I asked the clerk if she knew anything about a third floor being removed. She didn't, but she mentioned there was a woman 2 streets over, in her 90s, whose family had lived near the Odom property for 4 generations, and if anyone remembered anything, it'd be her. Her name was Miss Coral. She sat with me on her porch for 40 minutes and told me about the Odom family the way people in small towns tell you about families that don't exist there anymore, with a familiarity that made it sound recent, even though everyone involved had been dead for the better part of a century. She confirmed the 3rd floor. She said her own mother had been inside the house as a girl, before whatever happened, and that her mother had described a narrow staircase behind a door in the upstairs hallway, a staircase that led up to a single long room under the roofline. She said nobody in town used the word attic for it. They used a different word, one that meant something closer to the counting room, though she couldn't tell me why, and I got the sense she was choosing not to. I asked her when the 3rd floor came down. She said it didn't come down. She said, as far as anybody living remembered, nobody had ever torn it off, hauled it away, or recorded a renovation. It was just, at some point, that nobody could date precisely, no longer there when you looked at the house. But it was still there when you looked at the paperwork. Some houses forget what they used to be, she told me. That one didn't forget. It's just choosier now about who gets to see it. I didn't know what to do with that, so I thanked her and left. That afternoon, I photographed the exterior properly, front to back, all 4 elevations, the way I'm trained to. 2 floors, every time, every angle. When I got back to the motel and pulled the images onto my laptop to review them, I zoomed in on the roofline out of habit more than suspicion. In 4 of the 12 exterior shots, there was a window where no window should be, not in all 12. Just 4. A narrow, dark rectangle set into the roof pitch, in a spot that, standing in the yard, I would have sworn was solid shingle. I went back through my equipment log. Same camera, same lens, same tripod height, all 12 images taken within 9 minutes of each other. I could not explain why 4 frames had a window, and 8 did not. I did not sleep well that night. I want to be honest about that instead of dressing it up. I lay in a motel bed watching the ceiling and doing the kind of math you do when you're trying to talk yourself out of something, and somewhere close to 2 in the morning I got up and looked out the window one more time. The light was on again, same spot, same warm yellow color, steady, not flickering like a candle, not swinging like something loose in the wind. A light in a room that, by every measurement I had personally taken, did not exist. I have gone back and forth about how much of what happened next I actually did on purpose, versus how much of it happened to me. I got dressed. I took my camera because that's what I always do. It's reflexive at this point. Documenting is just what my hands do when I'm nervous. I walked across that field in the dark with a flashlight I never turned on because some part of me, correctly or not, believed that not being seen mattered more than being able to see. The front door of the Odom house was unlocked. Condemned properties are usually out here. Nobody worries about trespassers on a house that's coming down in 3 weeks. Inside, it smelled like every old house smells. Dust, mildew, and the particular sweetness of rotting wood. I moved through the downstairs rooms with my flashlight low, and everything was exactly what my daytime photographs had shown. A parlor, a kitchen with the stove pulled out, a staircase to the 2nd floor, which I climbed, and a 2nd floor hallway with 4 doors, which matched my measurements exactly. At the end of that hallway was a 5th door I had not photographed, because during the day, with the light coming through the windows normally, it had looked like a closet flush with the wall, unremarkable. At 2 in the morning, with a flashlight instead of daylight, it did not look unremarkable at all. It looked like the only thing in the house that was actually a door. I opened it. There was a staircase behind it, narrow, steep, built for a body smaller than mine, the kind of stairs old houses tuck away for servants or for storage, stairs meant to be used and not seen. I started counting the steps out loud. I don't know why. I think by that point some part of me had decided that if I documented everything precisely enough, carefully enough, nothing would be able to happen to me that I hadn't already accounted for. I counted to 14 and reached a landing that should not have existed, because 14 steps at that pitch should have put me at the roofline, and instead I was standing at a doorway with another, identical staircase visible beyond it, descending back down into darkness I had already climbed out of. I stopped counting. I want to tell you clearly what I saw at the top, because I think you deserve that after sitting with me this long, and I think I owe it to whoever ends up standing in that yard next, if there is a next. But I can't. Not because I'm protecting some twist for later. Because I genuinely do not have the language for it that doesn't sound smaller than what it was. There was a room. It was long and low, and it had windows on both ends, which was impossible because I had photographed every exterior wall of that house, and no length of roofline could contain that room. And there was light in it, the same warm yellow light I'd seen from my motel window, and it wasn't coming from a lamp or a fixture or anything I could point to. It was just how the air in that room behaved, and I understood, standing there, that I was being counted. Not watched, counted. The way I'd counted the stairs. The way the county had counted the floors. Like I was a figure that needed to be added into a total that hadn't balanced in a long time. I left my flashlight on that landing. I don't remember deciding to. I remember being back in the second floor hallway, then the front yard, then my motel room, with 3 of those transitions missing entirely, the way a dream loses its middle when you try to describe it the next morning. I finished the assignment. I photographed the interior properly the following 2 days, during daylight, with a colleague I called in from the regional office, because I did not want to be alone in that house again under any circumstances. We measured every room. The totals matched my exterior photographs. 2 floors. No 5th door at the end of the upstairs hallway. No staircase behind it. Just a wall, solid and unremarkable, the way it had looked the very first afternoon. The house came down in November, on schedule, 2 floors worth of lumber and lath, nothing more. I filed my report. 2 floors, contradicting the deed, the assessment, and the WPA photograph. I noted the discrepancy the way I'm required to and let someone else decide what it means, if anyone ever does. Here's the only other thing I'll tell you. It's been 8 months. I still count things without meaning to. Stairs, mostly. Windows, sometimes. I'll be in my own house, in a city 400 miles from Sweetwater, Alabama, and I'll catch myself standing at the bottom of my own staircase, counting the steps under my breath, and getting to the top, and for just a half a second, before my brain catches up with itself, being unable to remember whether the number I landed on matches the number it's supposed to be. It always does. So far, it always has. I just don't know anymore whether that's because nothing followed me out of that house, or because whatever's doing the counting hasn't finished yet. If you've ever caught yourself counting something you didn't mean to, like stairs, windows, doors, or anything, put count in the comments below. I read every single one. This is Red State Horror. I'll see you next Thursday.